Hello everyone, this is Tactical Lich here, and today we have a very special army build video. For the first time on the channel, we have a viewer submitted army build sent in by Aetherion, a very skillful and experienced player. We have a combination of non-meta Wood Elf units, Wardancers at the back. In the front we have some Zolts bringing in their bound spells, and also a single Sisters of the Thorn. Now, these bound spells combined together can make the Wardancers extremely tanky. We have the Shadow's Coil buffing their melee defense all the way up to 63, and if we combine the Zolt, Flash to Stone, and also the Shield of Thorns from the Sisters of the Thorn, the Wardancers can have up to 40% physical resistance and 75 armor, as well as now the 63 melee defense, allowing them to tank out the damage, while they will be dealing some good damage against low tier Chaffier infantry in general. Due to their bonus versus infantry, they will have at least 20 something attack against regular infantry units. Now for the rest of the army, to counter any cavalry units, we have the Eternal Guards, always a sturdy line of spears, and we also have a line of Glade Guards with Starfire shafts protected by some additional mobility, the Glade Riders. As for the spellcasting department, it seems that Aetherion will be relying on the Zolts for the heals, and the Spell Singer of Life will not be bringing in any healing, instead only Awakening of the Woods and also Shield of Thorns. As for leadership, we have the Glade Lord, the melee variant with the melee buffs, and also the Helm of Discord. Riding on top of a majestic stag with armor-piercing attacks, he will be leading the hunt against the filthy greenskins, as the green tide of trees is clashing against green tide of mushrooms. Greenskins bring in their signature light cavalry, forest goblin spider riders, mixed in with the skirmishers as well. And at the back, we have a bunch of Orc Boys, normally really good against the Wood Elf infantry, would trade even decently against the Wardancers due to Wardancers' low armor, but this time with the defensive buffs on the Wardancers, it might not be the same case. At the back, we have some Stone Trolls backing up the Giant River Troll Hack, who is bringing the Spirit Leech to drain away health of the Wood Elf army. As for leadership, of course, we have Grom the Paunch on his chariot, a very powerful greenskin lord choice, and that's basically it. Actually, we do have some anti-infantry Dirkit Squeaks hidden in the forest, and that's it for the army builds. Let's get the battle started and see what kind of bloodbath will the dances of these Wood Elf ladies unfold on the battlefield. Now, if we have a look at the Wood Elf Wardancers, we can see that they actually already have the Shadow's Coil activated with up to 63 melee defense and 16 melee attack after the debuff from the Shadow's Coil. When you look at the stats of other defensive units, the highest defensive stats for regular units non-regiment of renown are actually Ironbreakers with 66 melee defense, and these ladies have 63 with 1 coming from the extra chevron. Coming in at around 2/3 of the cost of the Ironbreakers, they can actually hold the line for quite long with their stats currently, especially combined with the physical resistance and also immune to psychology. Even without the buffs from, say, the Flesh to Stone or the Shield of Thorns, they will be able to hold against the Orc Boys, and combined with their bonus versus infantry on their weapon strength, they will have around 16 plus 8, 24 melee attack against regular Orc Boys, meaning that they can still match the melee defense on these Orc Boys, doing some nice damage. And now with the all these Stone Trolls and also the Orc Boys charging in, the Wardancers is taking a huge amount of pressure here. Let us pause a bit to look at the stats right now. With Shield of Thorns, they have right now 40% of physical resistance, allowing them to tank out a lot of the AP damage from the Stone Trolls. And with 62 melee defense on the non-upgraded Wardancers, they can now hold back the Stone Trolls rather effectively, who only have 36 melee attack. Combined with the charge bonus, that's only 70 max. So the Wardancers are holding back the tide of green skins, allowing the Zolts, who are rather squishy as far as monstrous infantry goes, to dish out the anti-large damage and also the massive weapon strength, AP weapon strength against the Orc Boys and the Zolts. Now over here, the Wardancers beat back a wave of Orc Boys and now cutting through a second wave, while over here some gold chevron forest goblin spider riders have got into the backlines, but the Sisters of the Thorn will be reacting very swiftly, positioning at the spider's rear, approaching over using the javelins to focus down the squishier greenskin mobility, and in the front line with 2 Zolts dropping down the Shield of Thorns, and also the Wardancers providing that infantry support. These stone trolls are broken off thanks to some support not only from the Zotes but also the melee focused Glade Lord himself on the Great Stag Knights, doing some nice armor piercing damage. But over here, these Glade Gods are being surrounded, overwhelmed by all these Forest Goblin and Spider Riders. The devastating firepower of the Order Green Tide is now silenced. But now the Zotes, after dealing with the front line, are charging back to deal with the backline threats, beating the Goblins into some organic fertilizers with their big stone clubs, rescuing these Glade Gods with Starfire Shouts. While at the front, the Stone Trolls are being chased off by the Glade Riders. Over here, some of these Stone Trolls came back, and finally a wall has been popped due to the prolonged melee combat of the Greenskins, filling up the wall meter. But it might be too little too late right now, as the Zotes are now dominating the monstrous fight, while the Wardancers are still holding on. These ladies, very tattered, down to 1000 health, but up to 123 kills, getting a chevron throughout the combat. And now the Zotes are charging in, surrounding Rom the Paunch, who is hit by a Curse of Armor Air thanks to the bounce spells on the Sisters of the Thorn. And basically this is a bit too much for the Greenskin now, as they do not have the melee stats to overwhelm these Eternal Gods, the Wardancers, and all these Zotes, who can also keep dropping heals onto the blob, consistently topping off the HP of the Wood Elf units. Also, another Shield of Thorns is dropped, probably from the Spellsinger, allowing the Zotes and Eternal Gods to receive some of that physical resistance alongside with some healing. One thing of note is that Zotes have this dampening effect, lowering the magic resistance of the Stone Trolls, allowing the magic anti-large attacks to do almost full damage to the Greenskin monstrosities. And with all these anti-large units armor piercing, and also the Glade Lord coming in, occasionally dropping that Helm of Discord, lowering the melee stats, the Greenskins just simply can't take it anymore, and army losses is hit. A very clean victory, with a combination of multiple bounce spells, providing some crucial defensive buffs. Now normally I would go into the post-battle screen, but I want to talk about more of this build first, so we'll just go directly into the analysis bit. Now in the first replay we talked about using Shield of Thorns to buff up that physical resistance, but this time let's take a look at the Flesh to Stone. With 75 armor, with the plus 60 armor from the spell, the Wardancers are able to negate around 50% of the non-armor piercing damage of these Orc Boys and also the characters. Now, after taking some heavy losses from the Orc Air Boys and also the Rock Lobbers, these ladies are now engaging in melee combat, receiving the armor buff, and now able to tank out the Orc Boys who would otherwise trade rather cost effectively into the Wardancers. And between the physical resistance, armor defenses, and also the melee defense, the Wardancers are not exactly taking that much damage throughout the whole combat. By including Zotes in his army, Aetherion was able to compensate for the rather squishy infantry of the Wood Elves by giving them a bit of an armor buff. This was actually taken from the replay between me and Aetherion, where he was showing me this build, and I was absolutely surprised by the tankiness of these Wardancers. They were able to wipe out my infantry forces and carry the Wood Elves to victory. Now we are at the army selection screen, where we can talk about how this build is used. Now of course we have the Zotes here with the Flesh to Stone and healing, also the Spellsinger of Life providing that Shield of Thorns, also with the Sisters of the Thorn providing all those defensive buffs for the Wardancers, making them tanky, allowing them to survive in combat, to hold the front line, allowing the Zotes to do the damage or the backline to fire into whatever units they're fighting. And in a pinch where they really need some additional help to kick their enemies' ass, we have the Sisters of the Thorns having the Curse of Armor Air as a bounce spell, and also the Glade Lord's Helm of Discord. Both of them are able to provide some significant stat debuffs on their enemy, allowing them to receive less hits or dealing more damage in return. Overall, a very well thought out build from Aetherion, able to synergize the unique traits of different niche units, maximizing their potential on the battlefield. I feel like there's also another way to play this, and it requires some modification to this build. Aetherion, if you're watching, I'm sorry what I'm about to do to your build, but I do have to change up quite a bit of stuff. Now, we don't necessarily need the Sisters of the Thorn because the Shield of Thorns can be provided by the Spellsinger, and the Curse of Onrair basically overlaps with the Helm of Discord. What we need actually is to take out the Sisters of the Thorn and instead bring in a Glade Captain. Now, Glade Captain is actually an amazing unit at buffing friendlies. They do have this ability called the Dance of Loeg, providing +5 melee defense, and also the Horn of Isha providing an extra +5 melee attack. So that's a +5 melee attack and defense for the Wood Elves. And if we take away the Deadly Onslaught to make them cheaper, and now we can go on to the Glade Lord. Now, we don't necessarily need this guy on the Great Stag. After all, his role is basically to buff and debuff, providing some interesting assistance to the battle. Now, the first of these assistants is the Call of the Woods, providing +5 melee attack on top of the Horn of Isha from the Glade Captain, and more importantly, the Banner of the Hunter King, +5 melee attack plus 10% charge bonus, and causing fear. With two characters combined together, the Wood Elves in a certain area overlapped by both auras from these two characters. They are capable of receiving a total of +15 melee attack and +5 melee defense. Not only does this further the melee defense stats of the Wardancers, but it also mitigates that melee attack debuff from the Shadow's Coil, giving the Wardancers a somewhat normal melee attack stat for a mid-tier infantry. If we do some quick math, the Wardancers, after receiving all these attack buffs, will still have 31 melee attack even after the Shadow's Coil debuff, allowing them to consistently damage their opponents. Both approaches have their own merit, with Aetherions able to provide additional support with the bounce spells from the Sisters of the Thorn and also providing that mobility, while the Glade Captain buffing route can provide a more sustained support of melee attack, mitigating the side effect of the Shadow's Coil, allowing the Wardancers to fight a bit better in a prolonged melee combat. And it will be up to the player to decide which of the two builds are more suitable according to the situation, the playstyle, and the matchup. And with the battle replay and build analysis complete, let's have a quick rundown of the army performances in the post-battle screen. With the Aetherions Wood Elf army, we have the Glade Gods able to actually fight through a whole bunch of Spider Riders and also fight through the Stone Trolls. Got some decent value overall, but of course the Wardancers MVP here, literally tanking out all the Orc Boys, all the Stone Trolls, and all these Forest Goblin Spider Riders. They took some significant damage, not doing a lot of damage in return, but most importantly, they were just holding consistently, allowing the Zotes, who are rather fragile as far as monstrous infantry goes, to do some great counter-punching damage, especially against Stone Trolls, the River Troll Hack, and also Grom the Punch. Now, the Glade Gods with Starfire Shafts not doing a lot of damage, mostly focusing down the Giant River Troll Hack and the Stone Troll, but shut down by the overwhelming mobility, needing the Glade Riders and the Sisters of the Thorn to come in for a rescue. But overall, it's just a combination of bounce spells and buffs from the characters to keep these Wardancers alive, allowing the rest of the army to do the damage they need to win the game. And with the Wardancers 60+ melee defense, all that physical resistance, and some occasional armor buff with Flesh to Stone, the Greenskins simply did not have enough punch to destroy the infantry support and subsequently the monster units of the Wood Elves. We have the Stone Trolls here not actually doing that much damage. Most of their attacks landed onto Wardancers, who basically blocked them off with their superior melee defense or the physical resistance. As for the rest of the Greenskin army, the Orc Boys got cleaned up by all those Wardancers. The 8-peak loonies did a little bit better with their Fanatics cast, but the Spider Riders, despite adding so many chevrons onto these guys, they were not able to do too much damage. Same goes for the Forest Goblin Spider Riders. There's just not a lot of targets for them to shoot at and run down. Yes, the Glade Gods are rather fragile, but the closely stationed by Glade Riders, Sisters of the Thorn, and also Eternal Gods were able to beat back all these mobility of the Greenskins, who are rather trash in terms of melee combat stats. As for the green skin characters, Giant River Trollhag did some Spirit Leeches, but unable to do too much damage either. Same goes for Grum the Paunch here, only 1200, so not exactly the best performance. And that's basically it for today's video. Thank you so much for Aetherion for sending in this replay and also showing me this amazing build of the Wood Elves. I do need to try it out at some point in the future. I was working on some other build on my own, so I didn't really have the time to utilize this build and test it out in, say, tournament battles and whatnot. But still, this has a lot of potential using those bound spells to maximum effect, overlapping all these buffs and debuffs together, and turning all these niche units into a powerhouse army build. I'm really impressed by the performances of all these units in this Wardancer build, turning the Wardancers into the tankiest Wood Elf unit. The Shadow's Coil ability on the Wardancers are often neglected by players, and it is actually a very useful ability. Aetherion actually invited me to do some tests with the Wardancer Shadow Coil ability, and I have some replays files saved with those tests. But that will probably be another video for another time, as this video will be approaching to its end. Viewers, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like it, remember to hit the like and subscribe to get notified every time I upload a new video. They will be covering topics including wild army builds like this one, battle replays for Total War Warhammer 2 online multiplayer, and also tips and strategies for the game. And if you have any replays that you wish to showcase or even army builds, feel free to drop by my Discord or send me an email with the replay file attached. I'll be sure to check them out. And yeah, that's basically it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. TacticalItch, signing out.